For a world that largely rejects the existence of a real devil, it is strange, perhaps even hypocritical, how obsessed society is with horror films, demons, and supernatural terror. If you ask the average person whether they believe in Satan, they might scoff at the idea. But these same people will willingly sit through 2 hours of a film glorifying demonic activity, possession, and the occult. Think about the sheer volume of horror films made every year, many of them centered on dark, spiritual themes. There's a disturbing fascination with the supernatural, but not in a biblical or godly sense. Rather, people are drawn to the most horrifying depictions of demons and evil forces. There are many films that come to mind when we talk about demonic themes. Perhaps you think of Hereditary, the 2018 film that revolves around demonic inheritance, occult rituals, and the summoning of the demon. Or maybe The Conjuring Universe, a franchise based on the real-life cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren, which focuses on hauntings, demonic possession, and occult influences. Many people who have watched these films have had real physical reactions. Some experience sleep paralysis, others feel an eerie presence around them, and some have even reported hearing strange noises in their homes after watching. The enemy knows that what we open ourselves to can have a lasting effect on our minds and spirits. But of all the films ever made, one stands out as the most demonic. One film has had a more profound cultural, spiritual, and occultic impact than any other. That film is The Exorcist, released in 1973. Before we even begin to discuss what makes The Exorcist so uniquely dangerous, we must first acknowledge that it was unlike anything that came before it. Many of you watching may not have been alive when this film was released, but I can assure you, it was a cultural earthquake. People today are desensitized to horror films. The industry has pushed the limits so far that audiences barely flinch at things that would have horrified previous generations. But in 1973, The Exorcist was something entirely new. When the film was released, reports of fainting and vomiting in theaters were widespread.
The Exorcist scored the biggest opening day gross for a single theater in the history of Los Angeles motion picture houses, and broke established records in every other theater where it opened across the country.
Sometimes even they stand in line for 5 and 7 hours. We've heard some of the people say they've been standing in line that long, and they'll come in and they won't be able to watch the whole movie because it's just too much for them, and they'll come out after about an hour, but they don't complain about standing in line. I don't like it. I want to go home. Makes my heart beat too fast.
I don't know, it doesn't bother me that much, but I guess it bothered her more than it bothered me.
This is the second time we've seen it. We still can't hack it.
Paramedics were frequently called to screenings because audience members collapsed in fear. Why did this film provoke such extreme reactions? There have been many terrifying movies before and since, but nothing else has elicited such a visceral response. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper. The film was marketed as just a movie, but something was different about it. It had a spiritual weight to it. The disturbing nature of The Exorcist wasn't limited to the screen. The production itself was plagued with bizarre and unsettling incidents. A mysterious fire destroyed part of the set, except for the room used for the exorcism scenes.
I do remember getting a phone call one morning at 4 a.m. from the production manager who said, "Don't bother to come to work today." And I said, "Why, am I fired?" And he said, "No, but the set has just burned to the ground." It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and the night watchman saw smoke coming out the door of the soundstage. And interestingly, it was while we were shooting the exorcism scene.
The rest of the set burned down, but the area depicting demonic activity remained untouched. Multiple actors suffered injuries during filming, and some reported strange experiences. 2 cast members died shortly after the movie's completion, adding to the film's dark legacy. Now, skeptics will say that these events are just coincidences, but can you really ignore such a long list of eerie occurrences? Billy Graham, one of the most well-respected Christian leaders of his time, famously spoke out against The Exorcist. He went so far as to say that there is a power of evil in the film, in the very fabric of the film itself. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He meant that the film carried a literal spiritual danger. Allow me to read you a portion of an article published by the BBC in 1998 about this film. The church condemned it. Rev. Billy Graham branded it evil. Members of the audience were physically sickened by it. And 25 years later, the British Board of Film Classification continues to ban it on video. But beginning June 19th, the ultimate horror film, The Exorcist, will be re-released in cinemas in Scotland prior to a wider UK release later this year. Other films may be as bloody and blasphemous, but The Exorcist still possesses an unearthly power to shock. This article is from 1998. There is something unusual about this film. The British Board of Film Classification banned it in their country, and Billy Graham openly spoke against it at the time. That alone speaks volumes about the film.
It didn't scare me. I don't know what happened. I just fainted. It was frightening.
My experience with this movie has been incredible, especially with people fainting. Halfway through the movie, the movie starts getting quite violent, and people get quite unusual reactions, and we have a lot of people throwing up and a lot of people shuddering. But the thing that really surprises me is people faint. I mean, I've never in my life known a movie where people would faint. I mean, it's hard to make people faint.
If a man like Billy Graham could discern that something demonic was attached to this film, shouldn't we take his words seriously? Some people may say, it's just a movie. It's not real. But that's exactly what the enemy wants you to think. Satan doesn't care whether you think it's just entertainment. He only cares that you expose yourself to darkness. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." This battle is spiritual. Hollywood won't come out and tell you that many horror films are directly inspired by real demonic encounters and occult rituals, but they are. Many horror directors have admitted to consulting real-life occultists, demonologists, and even priests to ensure accuracy in their films. That means the spells, the incantations, and the rituals you hear in these films are often not just fiction. They are real. If you think watching a film about demonic possession is harmless, you are gravely mistaken. The Bible warns us against engaging with the occult. Deuteronomy 18:10-11 says, "Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead." The moment you willingly engage with darkness, you are opening doors. You may think, it's just a movie, I'm not practicing witchcraft. But remember, Satan is subtle. He knows he doesn't have to get you to perform a ritual. He just has to get you comfortable with the idea. Think about how horror movies have progressed over the decades. What used to be shocking has now become mainstream. People are no longer afraid of what they once were. That's not because the world has become braver. It's because it has become more desensitized. The biggest deception Satan has ever pulled on mankind is convincing them that he doesn't exist. Many people don't believe in the devil. They think of him as a cartoonish figure with horns and a pitchfork, something out of a Halloween costume. But the Bible paints a very different picture. 1 Peter 5:8 warns us, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." Satan is not a joke. He is real. He is active. And he is seeking to destroy as many people as possible before his time runs out. Satan has an army. He has an organized network of demonic forces, and this organization is hard at work trying to influence and control both you and me. While Satan is not omnipotent, he cannot do everything, nor is he omniscient. He does not know everything, nor is he omnipresent. He cannot be everywhere at once. His organization is so vast that it seems as though he is at work in every part of the world. There are those who claim that Satan has already been chained. That is incorrect. Satan is a real entity, and he uses people to accomplish his purposes. He's powerful, and we should never take him lightly. Ephesians 6:10 says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might." Notice how Paul instructs us to be strong in the Lord, not in ourselves, but in him. If you try to stand against the devil in your own strength, he will tear you apart. He will completely destroy you in ways you never thought possible. Just look at what he did to Job. That's why Paul is very specific. Be strong in the Lord, not in yourself, but in his power. Several times in this passage, Paul commands us to be strong, to stand firm, to take our stand, because we are facing a formidable adversary. Satan is compared to a roaring lion, a fierce dragon, a deceptive angel of light, a cunning serpent, and a ruthless destroyer. He is both strong and subtle. That is why Paul warns us to stand against the wiles of the devil, to be equipped and ready for spiritual battle. Films like The Exorcist are not mere entertainment. They are tools in the enemy's hands. They normalize demonic activity, making it seem like something people can engage with without consequence. But the Bible makes it clear. Demons are real. Possession is real. Spiritual warfare is real. The enemy is not playing games. Isaiah 5:20 warns, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." This verse speaks directly to the cultural phenomenon of reversing moral values and labeling sin as harmless. Treating Satan as a benign or comedic figure undermines the seriousness of his work in the world. Satan's agenda is clear: to kill, steal, and destroy. From the very beginning, he has sought to undermine God's creation and draw humanity away from the truth. John chapter 8, verse 44 tells us that Satan was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Satan works tirelessly to deceive, distract, and lead people astray. Allow me to make this clear. Satan is a wicked being, one with real power and a very real dangerous agenda. There is a spiritual battle waging against Christians, and the longer you walk in faith, the more you realize that the Christian life is not a playground, but a battleground. Satan is after you. He is after your wife. He is after your husband. He is after your children. He is after your joy. He is after your peace. He is after your mind. He is even after your salvation. But thank God, he cannot touch your salvation. Nevertheless, he is relentless and will go after everything he can take from you. The Bible gives us clear insight into Satan's agenda. To kill, Satan is a murderer from the beginning, and he works through sin, deception, and rebellion to achieve this end. Steal. Satan seeks to steal God's glory, steal people's joy, and rob them of eternal life. His schemes are designed to divert attention away from God and toward worldly distractions. And to destroy, Satan works tirelessly to destroy families, communities, and even entire nations through sin and rebellion against God. His goal is to break relationships, sow chaos, and undermine God's plan for humanity. Every joke, movie, or story that trivializes Satan's work plays into his hands. Instead of being vigilant, people let their guard down. Instead of resisting the devil, they laugh at him, thinking he's just a fictional character. This is spiritual warfare disguised as entertainment. As followers of Christ, we are called to be discerning and wise in our engagement with culture. The Bible commands us to test all things and hold on to what is good first. Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 19 to 22. It urges us not to conform to the pattern of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds.